Lake of the Drowned by Andy Boon. Chapter 1, The Move. Kenta did not want to move to the countryside. He loved living in the city. He had his mother, his friends, and his pet dog, Owie. But his mother had gotten a new job, and it was in another country. He could not possibly move all the way to Brazil with her. He was about to start his second year at junior high school in Japan, and anyway, he did not speak a word of Portuguese. So, his mother decided that he should live with his grandmother, and that was that. She took Owie and 3 large suitcases filled with Kenta's things by car. She said her goodbyes to his grandmother and then drove back to the city. Kenta did not go. He wanted to spend as much time as he could with his friends. The day finally came when his mother left for the airport. Kenta hugged his mother and then boarded a train to his grandmother's village in the north. From the window, the buildings of Tokyo soon gave way to mountains, rivers, and forests. Kenta looked at the passing scenery. He already missed the city and his friends. After a very long journey, the train pulled into a small station. A gray-haired woman was waiting and smiling at Kenta as he got off the train. Owie was sat by her side, but jumped up when she saw Kenta. "Welcome," Kenta's grandmother said. "Let me help you with your bags." "How was the journey? You must be hungry." "Yeah, it was okay," Kenta replied. "I'm not so hungry though." "Okay. Well, there's lots of food at the house," Kenta's grandmother said. Kenta stroked Owie. She was really happy to see him and let out some loud barks. "Shh, Owie. I'm here now," Kenta said. "I'm here." It was a short drive from the station to the house. The house looked old. Kenta stepped inside. The house smelled old too. Kenta turned to walk back outside. He wanted to escape back to the city, but his grandmother was stood in the doorway. "Take these bags to your room, Kenta," she said. "It's the second room on the left." Kenta did as he was told. He slowly climbed the stairs. Owie ran ahead of him. In his room, he found a bed, some empty bookshelves, and a wardrobe. There was a big window next to the bed. "Well, this is my new life and it sucks," he said to Owie. Owie wagged her tail and ran excitedly around the room. "Well, at least you're happy," Kenta said. "I guess I'll take you for a long walk. Just wait until I've unpacked my things. Maybe we can go." Kenta looked out of the window. There was a small garden at the back of the house. Behind the garden, he saw a forest. There was a gate and a path through the middle of the forest. "That's where we'll go," he said to Owie. He opened his bags and started to unpack. Chapter 2, The Girl by the Lake. "Where are you going?" Kenta's grandmother smiled. "I'm going to take Owie for a walk," Kenta replied. "We're going to take the path through the forest." Kenta's grandmother stopped smiling. She looked very serious. She put her hands on Kenta's shoulders. "Promise me," she said, "that you'll stay on the path. Sometimes, people get lost in the forest." "Sure thing," said Kenta. The smile returned to her face. "Good. Well, enjoy your walk then." Owie was already out of the door and running towards the gate. The gate did not want to open. Kenta had to push it really hard. Finally, it gave way and they were on the path. The path turned right. Soon, there were tall trees on either side of them. The sunlight began to disappear behind the branches. It was quiet. It was very quiet. There was no sound of birds singing or insects chirping, just silence. "Owie," Kenta called. "Owie." She was ahead of him. Maybe we should go back. Suddenly, there was a noise in the trees to the left of them. It sounded like an animal. Owie barked. Come here. Kenta shouted, but it was too late. Owie ran off the path and towards the noise. Kenta had to follow. He was on a small track that ran to the left. He followed the sound of Owie barking. He followed the track and came out of an opening in the trees. There was a lake. The sun was shining on it, giving the water a bluey-green color. It was surrounded by several large rocks, and it looked very deep. Then, he saw the girl. She was beautiful. She was stroking Owie. Owie was wagging her tail. Hi, Kenta said to the girl. I see you found Owie. Yes, she smiled and carried on stroking the dog. Do you live around here? Kenta asked. Yes, she said. She did not look up. I'm Kenta. I just moved here. Then, she looked at him. She had long black hair and brown eyes. Her eyes looked as deep as the lake itself. Welcome, I'm Kena. I've lived here forever, she said. She smiled again. Kenta sat down next to her, and they talked. Kenta told her everything, about his mother, his friends back in Tokyo, the move to the village, and his grandmother. Kana listened. I didn't know there was a lake in the forest, Kenta said. No? She asked. Everybody knows about the lake, but they stay away. Only I come here. I like it here. Why do people stay away? He asked her. She looked deep into his eyes for a long time. She stood up and said, Sorry, I have to go. Will I see you again? Asked Kenta. I'm always here, she said. Always. Chapter 3, The Girl in the Village. That night, Kenta could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he thought of Kana. He thought of her deep eyes. He thought of her standing by the lake. You look sleepy, Kenta's grandmother said at the breakfast table. Are you okay? I'm great, he replied. I'm going to take Owie for a walk again today. Oh, good. You can get some groceries for me in the village then, Kenta's grandmother said. Without thinking, Kenta said, We're going to the lake. Lake? What lake? His grandmother asked. She looked worried. Kenta did not want to say, but his grandmother looked angry. I found a lake yesterday in the forest. I met. Kenta's grandmother interrupted him. She looked him in the eyes and said in a very strong voice, Listen to me. That lake is bad news. Stay away from it. I don't want to say too much about it, but it has a bad history. Many people have drowned in that lake. It's like the lake calls to them, and they listen. They go there and are taken to the very bottom. They are drowned. She sat down. She was shaking. She looked scared. You have to promise me, Kenta. Stay away from the lake. Kenta took his grandmother's hand and said, Okay. I promise. Now, let's finish breakfast. After breakfast, Kenta walked down to the village to get groceries. Owie walked ahead wagging her tail. Kenta thought about his grandmother's story. Was the lake really that bad? He thought. Grandmother is getting old. Maybe she's a little crazy. He smiled to himself. He got to the small grocery store and tied Owie to a post outside. Suddenly, he saw her. Kana was standing across the street. Kenta ran up to her and tapped her on the shoulder. Hey, Kana. It's me, he said. The girl turned around. She looked like Kana, but a little different. Her eyes were not the same. Her hair was a little shorter at the front. She looked angry. What did you call me? She asked. Sorry, you look like someone I know, Kenta said. Kana? The girl said. Yes, I met her yesterday at the lake, Kenta replied. The girl turned white. It looked like she was going to fall down. Kenta helped her sit down on a nearby bench. A few minutes passed. The girl did not speak. Finally, she said, you couldn't have seen Kana. Kana's my twin sister, but last year she died. There was an accident. She drowned in the lake. Kenta took a few steps back. He then smiled and said, you're kidding, right? Nice joke. I nearly believed you. He turned and went into the store. Chapter 4, Kana's Story. After Kenta finished the grocery shopping, he walked out of the store. The girl was still there. She was stroking Aoi. Aoi was wagging her tail. The girl turned to Kenta and said, I waited for you. I wasn't joking before. I am not Kana. We really need to talk. The girl helped Kenta carry the grocery bags. They started to walk back to Kenta's grandmother's house. I don't like to talk about this, you understand, but I'll tell you what happened to my sister, Kana, the girl said. Kenta nodded. Well, by the way, I'm Yuna, she tried to smile. Kana and I were really good friends. We used to do everything together. But one day, she went walking in the forest alone. She got lost. People went looking for her. Well, they found her, but she was different. Her eyes were different. She talked about meeting someone by the lake. She sounded crazy. They got her back home. That night she didn't sleep. She walked around the house saying she must return to the lake. My parents called for a doctor to come and see her. The doctor did not know what was wrong with her, but she was different, you know? I tried to talk to her. I asked her about the lake. I tried to ask her about the person she met there. Kana and I were always so close. She used to tell me everything. But she just looked up at me with those eyes and did not reply. It was really scary. Yuna stopped speaking. Kenta nodded to Yuna. What happened next? He asked. She got out of the house somehow, Yuna said. She just disappeared. People went looking for her again. They went to the lake. She was there. Yuna stopped. Her eyes were full of tears. She was dead. She drowned in the lake. But, but, but I saw her. I spoke to her. Kenta said. I know, Yuna replied. Maybe, we should go to the lake and talk to her. Kenta suggested. He still did not know whether he believed Yuna and her story about Kana. No, Yuna said quickly. Not the lake. I don't want to go near that lake. It changes people. What do you mean? Kenta looked into Yuna's eyes. I've said enough, she said. Here are your groceries. Yuna passed the bags to Kenta. Will I see you again? Kenta asked. I'm always here, she said. Always. Chapter 5, The Dream. Kenta could not sleep again that night. He thought about his meeting with Yuna, Kana's twin sister. Yuna did not want to go to the lake. She did not want to try and talk to Kana. Why is everyone so scared of this lake? He thought. Or, this is just some joke they play on the new boy in the village. He closed his eyes, but every time he did, he saw Kana. He saw her deep eyes looking at him. He saw her standing by the lake. I'm always here, she whispered to him. Always. It took a long time, but Kenta finally fell asleep. He was dreaming of Aoi. Aoi was running down a long path in a dark forest. She was running from something. Then, she disappeared. Aoi! He shouted. Aoi! Aoi! But there was no reply. Suddenly, he felt cold. He felt very cold. His bed felt hard. It was like he was lying on the ground outside. Then, something touched his face. It felt wet. He could hear the sound of water. I'm always here, she whispered to him. Always. Aoi? Is that you? Kenta asked. He opened one eye slowly and screamed. Kana was crouched on top of him. Her wet hair was cold against his face. He was by the lake. I'm dreaming, he told himself. I'll wake up soon. Kana took his arms and started to pull him towards the water. He tried to stop her, but she was really strong. Come and live with us forever, she said. He was in the lake. He could feel the water all around his body. He went under the water. She was taking him down to the bottom. He could not breathe. Suddenly, he woke up. The sun was slowly rising. It was sending light through his window. He was in his bed. He was safe in his grandmother's house. It was a dream after all. But he felt strange. Something was wrong. He got out of bed. His bed and his pajamas were soaking wet. He started to cough. Water came out of his mouth. He looked down at his arms. There were two big purple bruises there. His arms really hurt. This is real, Kenta thought. Kana really did pull me into the lake. Yuna was telling the truth. He needed to wake his grandmother. He needed to tell her everything. He needed to tell her that it was not safe here. He needed to get on the next train back to Tokyo. He would take Aoi. They both needed to be far away from here. Just then, a small stone hit the window. Kenta jumped. Another stone hit his bedroom window. He jumped. He went to the window. He could see a girl standing in the garden. At first, he was scared. He thought it was Kana. It looked like Kana. However, he realized it was the girl he met in the village. It was Kana's twin sister, Yuna. She was waving at him. She was telling him to come outside. She looked worried. Chapter 6, Yuna's Story. Kenta got dressed quickly and went outside. Yuna was waiting for him. Why are you here? Kenta asked Yuna. You need to leave. You need to get out of the village and go far away, Yuna said. She looked over her shoulder and back again at Kenta. It's the lake. They've seen you. They won't let you go now. Who are they? Kenta asked. The ones who've drowned. They are always here. Always. They cannot find peace. They want you to join them. You've seen them. You've seen them at the lake, and you've seen them in your dreams, Yuna said. How do you know about my dreams? Kenta asked. I know, she replied. She touched the bruises on his arms. I know. But you're safe, right? Why don't they take you? Kenta asked. They don't see me. They only see Kana. She protects me from them, Yuna replied. But they've seen you. You must go. Go now. Kenta agreed. He would pack his things and leave. He would write a letter to his grandmother and leave it on the kitchen table. He would get on a train to Tokyo. He could contact his friends. He could stay with them for a few days. He could call his mother in Brazil. He could get a flight there. He could go to school in Brazil. His mother would be happy. Then, he remembered Aoi. Where's Aoi? He asked. Kenta looked around. Aoi was nowhere to be seen. He did not want to shout and wake his grandmother. Aoi, he said in a quiet voice. Aoi, Aoi. He ran to the kitchen where Aoi sleeps. She was not there. He ran back to the garden. She was not there. Aoi, he said. Oh no, Kenta cried. What is it? Yuna asked. In my dream, I saw Aoi. She was running in the forest. She was running from something, Kenta replied. I have to go and find her. Will you help me? Yuna looked sad. Sorry, I can't go into the forest. I can't go near the lake. They will see me. Well, it looks like I'm on my own, Kenta said. He walked to the gate. This time when he pushed the gate, it opened easily. Chapter 7, The Search. Kenta walked quickly down the path through the forest. The sunlight was slowly finding its way through the trees, so he could see ahead of him. Then, the path turned right, and the sunlight began to disappear again behind the tall branches. It was quiet. It was very quiet. All Kenta could hear was the sound of his breathing and his beating heart. He knew where he would find Aoi. He knew from his dream. On the left, he saw the track to the lake. It was easy to find. He stopped and took a deep breath. He thought about turning back. There was still time to go back, to pack his bags, and get the morning train back to Tokyo. Suddenly, he heard barking. It was Aoi. Kenta ran through the opening in the trees. He saw the lake. He saw Aoi. And he saw Kana. She was stroking Aoi. Aoi was wagging her tail. I know what happened to you, he said to Kana. I know about the lake. I've spoken to your sister, Yuna. She's told me everything. You don't have to do this. Kana continued stroking Aoi. She did not look up at Kenta. Aoi. Aoi. Come here, girl, Kenta said to the dog. Come on, girl. But Aoi did not move. I know you're dead, Kana. I know you drowned in the lake. I know you're a ghost, Kenta shouted. Now, give me back my dog. He took a step forward. Kana looked up. Her deep eyes looked as black as her long hair. Her mouth started to open slowly. Water came out of her mouth, lots of water. It was the same bluey-green color as the lake. Come, she said. Come and live with us forever. Kana stretched her arms out in front of her. She picked Aoi from the ground. Then, slowly, she started to walk backwards. She stared directly into Kenta's eyes the whole time, and went into the lake. The dark water started to rise above her body. It covered her feet, then her legs, and then her chest. Soon, Kana would be under the surface with Aoi. No! Stop! Kenta screamed. He ran towards the lake and jumped in. He swam over to Kana and tried to take Aoi from Kana's hands. She would not let go, but he pushed her under the water. Kana released her grip on the dog and Kenta was able to get Aoi away from her. Kana came back to the surface of the water. She was not moving. She was still, lifeless, floating face down in the water. Kenta turned and started to swim away from her. He held Aoi in his right arm. He could see the edge of the lake. They were going to make it. Soon, they would be safe. Soon, he and Aoi would be on the next train out of the village and back to Tokyo. Suddenly, Kana moved quickly through the water. She got hold of the back of Kenta's legs. She started to pull him under the water. No, he screamed again. Kenta tried to stop her. He kicked his legs, but she was too strong for him. There seemed to be other hands gripping him now. They were pulling him down. He looked at Aoi and let the dog go. Aoi swam away. As Kenta was taken under the water, he heard Aoi barking. He smiled. He knew Aoi was safe. For Kenta, there was nothing but darkness. Then, in the darkness at the very bottom of the lake, Kenta heard a voice. "We're always here," the voice whispered. "Always." Chapter 8, The Beginning of the End. The two students were excited. It was their summer vacation, and they wanted to spend a few days together in the countryside. They loved to be away from the city. They loved camping. "This is a great place to put the tent up," said Akio. "Definitely," Izumi replied. "And we nearly missed this place. Lucky, I saw the track on the left. And this lake is really beautiful. Maybe we can take a swim in there later." "It looks quite deep," Akio said. "But it should be okay. We're both good swimmers." "Okay, let's get started," said Izumi. "Could you pass me the tent poles?" Suddenly, they heard a dog barking. "Look at that cute dog," Izumi said. "Do you have any food? It looks really hungry." Izumi found some snacks in her bag. The dog came nearer. "Looks like you've made a friend," Akio laughed. Izumi started to stroke the dog. "Hi, I see you found Aoi," Kenta said. Akio and Izumi jumped a little. They were surprised to see a young boy looking at them. He had deep brown eyes. They looked as deep as the lake itself. "Hi," Izumi said. "Is this your dog?" "Yes," Kenta said. He continued looking at them with his deep eyes. "Do you live around here?" Akio asked. "I've lived here forever," Kenta replied. He smiled. "Come on, Aoi, we have to go." The dog ran to Kenta's side. As Kenta turned to walk away, Akio said, "Well, it was nice meeting you. Hope to see you again." Kenta stopped. He looked at them both again. "I'm always here," he said. "Always." The end.